Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor podcast. Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor. Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Devon Taylor podcast, where we have guests from all around the world tell their unique and powerful stories to not only allow their voice to be heard, but for you to leave feeling inspired. Today's guest is someone who embodies resilience and the power of perspective. He has made it his mission to help others shift their mindset from pain to purpose, teaching that life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. Despite a childhood marked by hardship and abuse, our next guest refuses to let those challenges define him. Instead, he turned his experience into fuel for growth, healing, and leadership. He's the author of Valued Leader, a book that challenges readers to recognize their worth, embrace their potential, and rise above self-doubt. So I'm happy to welcome to the show, Taylor Bowden. Hello.
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity to be on here. So one of my greatest messages that I want to deliver is never let your past define you. We all have those moments where they feel like a burden and we're overwhelmed by them. Trust me. I mean, that's human. We all will experience those. But at the end of the day, none of that should take your happiness and the peaceful state of mind that we all should desire.
Yeah, I love that, and I love how you've kind of used your, we met on LinkedIn, and you've used your LinkedIn to kind of promote these words of affirmation, this positive way of thinking. But I'd love for you to take us back to that moment where you kind of had that mindset shift. And one of the things that I noticed that you said was we talk about life not happening to us but for us. So what was that shift for you? What was that moment?
Well, I get asked this question a lot, and I'm hoping that I get better on answering this every single time. But I would say it's just accumulation because at some point in my life, and I'm sure we'll dive into this in just a second, but some point in my life, I was consumed by fear, doubts, and just pure darkness because I grew up in an abusive household, and unfortunately, I had to experience that. Now, as I look back, I forgive everybody involved, and I don't even like stating people's names and even diving into the story because to me, there is no hatred or anything associated to that. It's just part of my story. So, anyways, I had to accumulate this mindset and a desire for peace, because to me, abundance is that peaceful state of mind.
I love that. And you know what's funny is that you're saying this at this time in my life too, is there has been a lot of, I mean, obviously you see what's going on in the world. There's just like a lot of wars going on. There's a lot of famine. There's a lot of hurt going on. And even within ourselves, I'm sure a lot of people are struggling emotionally, mentally, to try to stay positive or try to keep going. But you seem to have found a way to do it. Like you said, you've accumulated that. Do you think there was like a moment where you decided like this is where I'm going to live now? And how was that? Why was that the choice you made? Because a lot of us will not make that choice, you know?
Yeah, so I feel like our biggest strengths come from our darkest moments. So I guess through my perspective, I had a really, really dark moment. And I believe since I went through that, I had the intentions of finding something that wasn't so consuming. And so there was a lot of thoughts accumulating, a lot of different experiences and things I had to go through to eventually kind of do a spiral uphill instead of going downhill. And so to answer your question, it's because we're all designed to have happiness, joy, peace, and abundance. But at the same time, we're all designed to have those opposite emotions and opposite feelings. To me, I figured out that since I've had, in my case, the lowest moments that I've ever experienced, and I compared that to either prior or experiences after that, I have found that there is nothing but reason to find a way to have a peaceful state of mind. And it took a lot of time and a lot of effort. It wasn't easy.
Yeah. I can only imagine. I mean, a lot of like I said, a lot of us are struggling trying to find like the light at the end of the tunnel is what I like to say, and I've struggled with it. I think my biggest thing was or even still now is trying to make peace with the things that I can't control. You know what I mean? I don't I don't know if that was an issue ever. Obviously you were going through abuse, so that's something that you can't control. But what made you I mean, obviously you're helping yourself, but what made you want to help other people?
So I would say because I'm empathetic, since I suffered so deeply, I don't want anybody to suffer. I don't like conflict. Conflict is like my worst enemy. So I guess it's because I strive towards peace, and peace isn't designed or isn't created by the self. It is thought and perceived by the self, but it's a balance and harmony of all things around you. Because I can want peace as much as I can, but if my environment isn't peaceful, then there is no such thing as peace inside of me. So, what I like to do is I try to establish peace. If there is something kind of going downhill, whether it's in my house, whether it be with friends or whatever the case, where it becomes negative, I intentionally shift the conversation to something positive. I typically don't explain why I'm doing it. I just do it because there shouldn't be explanation. There just should be a focus of having happiness. I mean, we can all talk about our stressful moments, but for me, yes, it can be like a therapy, but at a certain point, we start drowning inside of these thoughts because we're communicating. And as we express them, the more potent they are in our brain. So I like to shift that into, oh, wow, I smiled by X, Y, and Z, or this happened really good to me today. So there should be all reasons to smile, and etc.
Yeah. Do you ever get any pushback from your friends when you do that? When they're all, oh, being negative and talking about this happened at work or this happened and I can't stand this person, and then you shift it, what's the response you get?
They just typically drift with it.
That's good. Because, some people will say, like, why are you changing the subject, or why are you, focusing on this or whatever, or try to challenge you in that, and you've never had to deal with that, which is great. But what do you think would happen if you did come across someone that was like, I don't want to be positive right now? How would you respond to that?
Well, it's very rare for me to get mad. I would definitely not be mad in a situation like that. I would ah, that's a good question. What would I
Yeah,
do?
yeah, I always think about what's it called when I'm hearing the guest or any guest to come on and talk. I always try to put myself in those shoes of what would happen if I was like a fly on the wall, or if I was someone just kind of listening in. And that was the first thought that came to mind. Like, what if someone pushed back on that? Because I've dealt with people in the past. I'm very much like you, where I want to be in positive energy and try to keep the positive. And once I see the negative, I don't take the approach of changing the subject. I walk away, or I try to like, exit left. But I love the idea of trying to like combat the negative energy with the positive one. But I am curious, like, what would your answer be if someone was like, no, I don't want to be, what would you do?
Oh, okay, so I think I had some time to think about it. I would just kind of ask questions, and instead of, like, being forceful, because peace doesn't act in force. Peace is a flow. And so I would just have a conversation. And if that was the case, there's probably something that person is struggling with. And so
Yeah.
maybe that is an opportunity for them to open up and for me to be patient and understand. I I have this interesting thing. I'm actually writing a second book and I can't wait to publish it. In my one of the chapters in my book, it talks about the power of understanding decisions. So, for example, let's say I'm gonna make up a name. Let's say Alex or something had an experience at work today, and Alex said that work was really bad. And then he says that maybe moments later, hours later, or whatever the case, the next day he says, no, actually, work was really good. So, which one is accurate? They're both accurate. because they were both relevant in that person's perspective. Maybe he perceived it being a bad day because he got yelled at his boss or something like that. And then maybe he perceived it as a good day because he accomplished something. So we typically interpret one as truth and the other as a lie. But maybe in this scenario where that person doesn't want to be positive, maybe that's a time to understand the decision or the emotions behind that.
And I think that's really where, as human beings, we can be a little bit more open to, the understanding. I spoke to someone the other day, another guest, kind of about that, just like the openness of hearing someone out, allowing someone to talk. And when you do that, you kind of create like almost like a synergy between you and that person where they feel heard. But I kind of wanted to go to your book since you mentioned that your first book actually, which is called Valued Leader. I love asking people why they wrote the book they wrote, what called them to that, and what their experience was like. But I'd like to first start off with that first question, like what called you to write your first book?
Well, nothing too significant. Well, first of all, I love writing. That's one of my biggest talents. I love a lot of things, and I would say that's top three talents. I've articulated a lot of thoughts that I am even inspired as I write them down. But I guess that is a form or a reason of it, but it all goes down to having passive income and building opportunities. And that's kind of where the idea, like, okay, let me write a book. But the second one is like, wow, I have a message to deliver. So let me deliver it as best as I possibly can.
I love that. How was the writing process for you? Because I know a lot of people will struggle because they'll hear what you're saying, and I agree 100%. Passive income is one of the easiest ways for you to create a source of income, especially when it comes to writing a book. But how was that process? Because for me, it was pretty daunting. But I like to, ask other people what was the process like for them.
Yeah, interesting. So um there wasn't actually designed to be a book at first. I got all the chapters done and I wanted to throw it into a course on uh Cuba or whatever the name of that platform is, and it didn't work. So I had all this material and I decided to put it in a book. So I went through KDP, and yeah, it was a rat race. It took a lot of effort, but I'm glad I did it. And so I've sold quite a bit of books, nothing too significant. I'm hoping to sell a lot more. The reason why I think this book is incredible, and this is beyond my bias. I mean, I guess I'm a biased person. I love this book. I love my writing. I'm inspired by it, but hopefully it sounds humble enough. But my brand is called Life's Value Learning. And what that really means is we're all very valuable. We're all unique because of our own experiences. That means, and it sounds crazy, but that means everybody listening is as important as some of these richest people that people look up to, at these celebrities that have so much fame and some don't even deserve it, but you are as valuable as them. The value leader is that, pretty much that, but on top of that is, since that you are that valuable, you have your unique experiences and talents, you have the ability to lead because you probably know something better than anybody else, just like other people might know something better than that person. So we all have the potential to become a leader. There is no such thing as, well, I'm not good enough to be a leader, because you are valuable.
And you've done something that a lot of people have struggled to do or even start that process, which is write a book. So now, yeah, you're an industry leader and becoming an author, and now that can be even a book on its own. That process and what you've done and what you've accomplished. So, congrats to you for writing your book and putting it out there. I think that's a huge accomplishment that a lot of people don't realize. It takes a lot of work and effort and time and attention. So I commend you for that. But I also wanted to ask too, what do you think? Why was it important for you to write this book?
Well, going back to the idea of finding value, and this is going back to the root of my story. I didn't feel valuable. I looked back and I just saw shame. I saw doubt. I saw all these negative things. But yet, look where I'm at. And so if I went to what I went through, that means you can become everything I have and maybe a lot more. So I never want to define or let my past define me, nor do I ever encourage people to continue looking back at their negative moments. So sometimes it's hard to move forward, especially when we're looking back. But the best thing we can do for our mindset is to understand that life is going to be chaotic sometimes, but that shouldn't take our energy. Energy is the most important thing. When you have enough positive energy, you can become successful at the things that you want to. But with that negative energy, it blocks it. You start becoming burdened and you are, well, actually, it's science. You start having cortisol, and that cortisol starts breaking down even muscle tissue. And it makes it hard to actually process information. So, pretty much the root of this is that everyone's valuable. And since that is the case, I was inspired to write this book to explain that everybody listening is valuable and they have the potential to become a leader.
I love that. And I think a lot of people will ask too, how did you get to this point? What did you personally do to get past all of the pain that your past carried with you? Like, you seem to be so focused on growing and becoming a better human, not just for yourself, but for the world. How did you get to this point?
Okay, so I always use this one too. Let's imagine a forest, and obviously forests are pretty dark at night. And somebody's lost in this forest, don't know where to go, but all of a sudden they see like this brightness. They don't know exactly what it is. They just know it's out there. But they continue to roam in this forest, trying to figure out where to go. And every time they circle back to this light, they wonder, what is this? Maybe in this scenario, that person was unfamiliar of what that light looked like. So as you walk towards a light in a forest, it is obvious that it's going to manifest itself. It's going to shine brighter. So you realize that there is something there. And then eventually that person gets to that light source and says, "Oh, this is what it is." And then let's just say it's, well, I mean, it's a bunch of things, but in this case, let's say it's Christ, because I am a believer. Um, and then if you're not religious, then it's maybe happiness, finding peace, finding abundance. And abundance isn't defined by how much you have in your bank account, it's your mindset. But, anyways, then you have this revealed. You have all these things that could be considered as a light in your life. And it's right there in front of you. You know exactly how to describe it and how it looks like. But then what happens when you go out and you start wandering the dark forest? You're like, wow, what's missing? What am I missing? And then eventually you find your way back to that light because it seems more satisfying. And then let's just say again, you walk away. And so what I'm getting at is that to me, this light is the things I listed. And wandering in a forest, a uncertain place, it's not really worth my energy. So whatever I need to make this light shine brighter, I will do. And sometimes my burdens and stress has to be left out there. Not that I'm running away from it, but I choose something better.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, amen, because I believe in Christ as well, and I'm a follower of Jesus. So I can 100% relate. I find myself, even lately, I found myself when I would have any thoughts that were negative or any thoughts that were kind of I would say distracting me from my mission, my goal, my purpose here on earth. I would start playing gospel music, and some of the hymns. I think I said it in this last podcast I did an interview for, but it goes. He was there for me when everyone else around me could only see the worst for me, or something. he saw the best in me. That's what it is. He saw the best in me when everyone else around me could only see the worst in me. And just repeating that over and over for me, at least, has helped me out in those moments. Do you find yourself? I mean, because you said that you believe in God. Do you find yourself turning to any kind of Christian music or um,
Do
yeah?
I ever? Yeah, all day. You know, people might think I'm crazy because I don't listen to this modern music. It doesn't provide me what I'm looking for. It's putting these subliminal messages inside of my brain that I do not need. And so, you know how you mentioned that you walk out of a room when there's negativity? That's not always easy to do when you're around people that you love and they kind of drift down that way. But there are things that I will walk away no matter what. That is some crazy movie that has this weird message that I don't want to be placed inside of my brain. Terrible music with all these crazy subliminal messages, and I believe they're intentional. But those are several of the reasons why I walk away. But when it comes to music, people might think I'm weird, but I listen to church music almost every day of my life. So I'm actually a member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, and I listen to
Um,
that music all the time. And people can think what they want, but this is my piece.
I think it's beautiful music, and I don't think anyone thinks you're crazy at all. Like I said, I it's music that has just got such like a positive aura around it, and I just couldn't help but notice the more I listened to it, the more I noticed positivity around me and things happening and moving and flowing a lot better. And I can't say that everyone will want to listen to Christian music, but it's my suggestion that I mean, and then obviously yours too, you listen to it, so I would say we suggest it could help in some ways when it comes to what is out there right now and what is trending, which is usually a lot of, junk and trash. And, I think the celebrities right now are proving that more so now than ever. So I'm glad that's something that we can relate on. But I kind of wanted to ask too, because like I said, like I've noted before, you seem like the positivity in your mind, how you're moving along in life seems to be super inspiring. So for someone that's still stuck in old stories or self-doubt, what would be the first step that you would suggest to them to help shift their mindset?
So doubt comes from the experience or the circumstance that you're placed in. There's still times I doubt, but I never let that take control of what I know I can do. So if we can find a way to understand, first of all, what we're feeling. A lot of our stress comes from conflict when we have one thing saying that we want to do this, and then another part of our brain saying we want to do that. So which one do I decide to do? But in reality, they're both you. They're both part of your perspective and they've been formed because of your experiences. So which one should you do? I mean, that is just dependent on your emotions and what logic you see from it. So when we have all this conflict from our brains, it starts to create this conflict and that begins to create doubt. So to fix that is the root is understanding. If we don't understand, we anticipate something like, let's say we anticipate having confidence or belief, but if we don't understand why we are feeling doubts and we just want this, it typically doesn't happen. You want to take steps and progress towards it, but at the same time, you want to understand what's taking you back. So it's pretty much breaking the barriers inside of your brain because that's pretty much what doubt is. It's a thought inside of your brain saying, no, you can't do something. And maybe in that moment, you can. Maybe that's just the situation. But if we let that hold us back, it's damaging. So I guess to simplify that, we have to understand our circumstance. And when doubt creeps in, understand it's human, but also understand that there has to be a solution And if we find that solution, we might as well take steps towards it, manifest it. Otherwise, we sit in our doubt. Nobody wants to feel doubt. Some people feel like it's a almost a obligation or a chain that's chaining them down. But why are they focusing on that? Why can't they focus on, well, it took me a long time, but I think I figured out a solution. And then once that happens, you go from doubt. I guess this is a choice, but you can go from doubt into manifesting the solution. And by no means it won't be easy. Life is an uncertain place, but you can realize that, understand, and then progress towards it.
I love that. You know, this podcast was built, or at least it was thought of out of a moment when I was the most doubtful of myself. And it took me getting up and saying, I'm doing this no matter what, because I feel like I'm called to do this. And even after that, after starting the podcast and pushing forward, there were still moments where I was like, should I be doing this? But having guests like you, having people reach out and want to be on the podcast, want to help build the platform every day helps build that trust that what I'm doing is the right thing and I'm on the right path. So thank you for saying that, because even when you're speaking right now, you're even speaking to me, you know, because there's still, like you said, you have doubt, I have doubt. I know anyone that may be listening may have doubt. So knowing that we all struggle with that, but you know, it's really what you do with the doubt that helps define the next phase in your life. But also wanted to ask too, what do you say to people who struggle to see the value in themselves after they go through something traumatic or a big failure?
Well, we live in a world where we'll make billions of mistakes. We don't want that to happen, but we will. Then on the other side, you see how there's always the other side in things I say. It's you can think about it this way and you can think about it this way because that is what we decide to do. So on the other side, there will be billions of things that make us smile. And actually, I have a better answer than that. I call it the gravity of focus. And I don't know if anybody else talks about it. They may, but that's not really the point. But when we have a focus point in our brain, we have we create energy into it. And the more we think of it, the more it grows within us. So it's pretty much like a seed. Every thought we are thinking is either placing a seed in our brain or nurturing one. And so this is kind of where the gravity of focus comes in place. Once we put a lot of energy into something, it becomes a stronger force or a stronger connection with our thoughts. Now, what happens when we think something else is typically the gravity starts gravitating towards the other thing. So when we have two opposite thoughts, like today was good or today was bad, the more we think about one, the more gravity it has. And then when we start to think about the other one, eventually it gravitates back. So how do we fix the gravity of focus? That is by reminding yourself things. You can articulate it any way you want. You can be around positive people, supportive people, and sometimes it's hard in some environments, but there are ways. I cannot say it's impossible no matter where you are placed in your life. There will be ways where you can create a better, I guess, a better formation on these positive things that are happening in your life. Hopefully that answered your question.
No, absolutely. And I think just hearing, like you said, the duality of both sides really helps paint a picture for anyone that may be struggling right now. Because I know a lot of my listeners are, you know, thinking about the next phase of their life or thinking about how to take the right next step. So hearing it from someone that is actively doing it, I know will help them be more confident when it comes to making that decision that's going to help shape the next 4 or 5 years of their life or whatever it may be. But I also wanted to ask too, in your opinion, what's the biggest mistake people make when it comes to self-worth or leadership?
They associate themselves with the wrong thing, and that is as simple as it gets.
No, that's I hear you. I hear you a lot because like I said, and I'm being pretty vulnerable right now when I'm saying this stuff because I try not to share too much about my insecurities, but there are a lot of insecurities that come with presenting yourself on a platform and trying to be professional every time you meet with someone and not sure, not knowing if you asked all the right questions or if you did a good in it. So I 100% can hear what you're saying with that because I could associate with that side, that negative side, and completely indulge in that and not have a platform anymore. But I know that there's something in me that kicks up every single time those thoughts come in that says there's a reason why you're doing this. And with you sitting in front of me, it gives me even more reason to say that. So um I wanted to go off of one thing that you said that I really liked. You often say life isn't meant to be easy, but it's meant to grow us. How does that belief shape the way you face challenges today?
Yeah, so I wanted to circle back. I'll circle back to that real quick. But I
Yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to say that I would say I'm a very positive person, but I myself has a lot have a lot of insecurities. There's things that I feel like I am pressured about, but I realize that this pressure is just a normal human feeling, and I am the one that decides for that to hold me back. So sometimes I push past it and I'm still anxious about something, which is normal. We all have anxiety just like we all have happiness. But one thing that sets me apart is that obviously I have fear, but I don't let that limit me. I become less afraid of that and more afraid of this defining me. So for example, I have pressure to going on stages and speaking to a lot of people, and sometimes I feel anxious about it. But it's worse for me to say, well, I'm so anxious, so let me go sit back down. That is worse to me than facing up my anxiety. And I'm not saying this is the mindset for everybody. That is the mindset that I have. Yeah, so life is just not meant to be easy. It really isn't. But there's a lesson in every single day, actually, in every single minute. So, I mean, we might as well ride the wave and see where it takes us. But I have a question for you. Why do you think it's valuable to see the growth instead of, wow, today really was hard and letting that hold you back? Why would you say that is better?
First, I love when people do this. I think it's one of the most respectful things you can do on a podcast, and a lot of people are shy to do it. So thank you for asking me that question. Uh, why do I think it's more important to see the growth versus to dwell on the negative things that may be happening within that growth? Because I think, like you said earlier, like the negativity can kind of almost lead you on a spiral where it can leave you stuck in a moment and not allow you to see all of the growth, all of the accomplishments that you've accumulated on that way to where you're at. And for me, just to kind of relate it to my situation and kind of what I was talking about earlier, I find myself in situations where I'll be hard on myself or I'll think negative about what I've done and find myself in that loop. And the moment I take myself out of that loop and I make a defined step forward or a defined action, that's when I start to see like, wow, I can look back and see how much that was holding me back versus me making that move and seeing how much progress I did by just doing that one thing. So, I mean, that's why it really resonated with me when you reached out because I love that you kind of taken like you've accepted life that it's hard, but at the same time you can make it what you want as long as you're willing to go for the ride. And um yeah, I think it's really inspiring because it makes you kind of reflect and look at yourself and say, okay, maybe that's the mindset I need to have more often so that I can continue to progress versus progressing, taking that stop and you know, dwelling on whatever it was and spending 5, 4 months, whatever it is, 5 years before you actually pick up that next momentum mark and, waste time essentially. So that's how I would answer that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Amazing. So I guess my next question is on how I had the example of gravity of focus, where there are opposing thoughts, and whatever we tend to think more, we gravitate towards more. And then if we think something else, we try to gravitate that that's better, but sometimes it falls back because there's more force and energy on the other one. How would you explain that in your own words?
If I were to explain that in my own words, well, I would say it's kind of like relating to what I just said about how you'll make progress, and then the moment that you start to think about something negative and it starts to accumulate, and then that just kind of builds up until you're ready to make the next moment. I guess the way I could see it is that it could. I've had moments where, and I'm trying to think personally, like moments where I've thought only positive, only positive, only positive, only positive, and never acknowledge the negative. But then you get whiplashes of the negative coming through because there's not enough of the like in between, like where you can see both, acknowledge both, and choose which one you're going on versus just choosing the one and kind of having like a pendulum swing, if that makes any sense. That's kind of how I interpreted it. Was, there's got to be like a medium between like acknowledging the negative and acknowledging the positive and then making a choice between the two. So that's how I would kind of took it. I don't know if that's the way you meant it, but yeah, that's because I felt it before. I've felt just being positive and only trying to be positive, not acknowledging the negative and still seeing the negative, but coming tenfold because I didn't acknowledge it, and then sitting longer in the negative because I wasn't allowing myself to be neutral.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's an awesome answer.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I love this too because it gives me an opportunity to really see the impact from each guest. How because honestly, I'm going to be quite transparent. When I have a guest on here and I see that they have a lot of insight, I ask for myself, and then my when I ask for myself, I know that my audience would benefit because a lot of them will probably have the same questions and want the same answers in some way. So thank you for doing that because it really does help me.
Yeah, I'm always glad to help in any way I can, even to, I don't know, I guess I'm like a good Samaritan type of person.
We need more of those. We don't have enough. I think that's the problem with the world right now is there's not enough good faith people out there, and um
I
it
don't feel like religious, like you can not even be religious and still be considerate, and you can find ways to help others. And actually, there are so many people that do that, and I love them all. I think they're very amazing people. I think everybody's amazing, but um, sometimes it's good to help people, right?
yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things that I pulled from doing this podcast and having so many different people in so many different fields in what they're doing. Essentially, at the core of it, everyone wants to help. They want to see the next person find a little bit more success than they maybe had found, because a lot of what, these stories are, someone being impacted by something, whether it be a disease, a death, a discovery, and then turning that moment into their purpose, and then using that purpose to impact the world. And I think it's so beautiful to see that over and over and over again, but just like almost like in different fonts. Um, and I would say yours is very bold, very loud, very big, and you can feel your heart. I know that what you're doing, you're not just doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for others.
I am.
So that's very commendable, and you should be proud of yourself
Thank you.
for yeah for doing that. Um, I know that you said your goal was to speak in front of thousands of people. What's the core message you want people to walk away with when they hear you speak?
So for the hardest time, I mean, for the longest time, it's been hard for me to pick a specific niche because I guess personally, I believe that the motivation that I talk about can speak to the general audience because we all need motivation. Even I need some motivation sometimes.
Mhm.
So it was very general, but eventually I decided to narrow it down, even though I would love to speak to everybody, anybody, as many people as possible. That is, I don't mind. I love speaking. Yes, I do get anxious sometimes. I do feel pressure, but I never let that define me. So how I narrowed down my speaking topics or my speaking theme, I guess you can say, is there's three P's: positive perspective for potential. So when we have a positive mind, it shapes our perspective. And then at that point, we understand our potential.
I love that. And I think that's something that a lot of us human beings need. I want to ask too. I only have a few more questions, but I want to. This one might require you to kind of go back a little bit. But when you look back at your journey from childhood to now, what does valued mean to you today?
Well, if I saw myself 15 years in the past, actually, let me change how I said that. If the 15-year ago me saw who I am today, that person would be like, who the heck is that? That doesn't seem familiar.
Wow.
But I guess to me, I might sound different when I say this, and maybe a lot of you agree with me. But if I had the chance to take away all of that child abuse, all of the things that I did dumb, like hanging out with the wrong people at the wrong time, doing the wrong things, yes, I wouldn't do them again. But no, I wouldn't change it because those are building blocks. We all need those building blocks, whether we appreciate what we went through. But also, the thing is, we design our own picture. Sometimes our picture seems incomplete. We look at a painting and saying, "Wow, this doesn't seem like it's a painting." And so we tend to think about the bad things we start painting. Like in my case, the negative the negativity that I experienced, like child abuse, doing drug abuse, hanging out with the wrong people, doing the wrong things. That was painting my picture at that point. That picture is still not complete to this day. But if I didn't paint those parts of my picture, I wouldn't be painting where I am at today. So all of this is valuable. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything, and I'm a firm believer in that. Everything that has happened to me in my life needed to happen for whatever reason to put me in the place that I am today. And there are moments where I do look back and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have made the, different decision, or oh man, like if things were just a little okay. And I come to that realization that yeah, life is what it is and what we're making of it, and God has put anything and everything in my path because he believed I could handle it. So I love that you said that. Um, but I do want to ask before I let you go two more questions. If you had a message for anyone that's listening right now, what would it be?
The most important thing is you. The most important thing is the life that you're experiencing. Everybody. This isn't for a specific person. You're as important as the most successful people. So when we start to understand that this is the case, you start to understand your potential and what you can become. And then at that part and in that point of your life, these opportunities are placed inside of you. I mean, in placed inside of your life. But what seems to happen is sometimes, and even myself, believe that there's no opportunity out there. And if there are opportunities, those doors were shut and it blinds us. Because if we keep on looking back at the doors that have been shut, it's hard to see the doors around us opening. So I guess the message that I want to deliver is first of all, understand why you are important. Then, after that, start explaining to your brain on how you can become more of what you desire. And then at that point, be consistent because desires require a process. It's just not a snap of the finger and you desire it and boom, it's there. That's not the case. So once we find that we're important, we understand our desires and how to reach them, we have to be consistent. And this is probably the most important part is when we fall back. What happens when we fall back? Typically, we fall back because of behavior, because we are in a habit of behaving a specific way. That's okay. Understand it. Don't create conflict because you're not perfect. I like to say that the expectations of perfection should never be considered. I want to repeat that one more time. The expectations for perfection should never be considered. So that means it will be certain for you to fall back at times. But what is the harmful thing about that is going into your mind saying, crap, I didn't accomplish something, or crap, I made a mistake, and crap, I wasn't able to do what I've worked so hard at. That is creating the conflict inside of our brain. And at that point, we have so much conflict that we tend to lose focus on what we were trying to achieve and instead focusing on the things we've done wrong as we fall back.
And I have been guilty of that.
Same.
Much better, yeah, much better lately though, because it's easier to catch when you're aware. So I'm glad that you're saying that, and I'm glad that you're leaving that for the audience and anyone that's listening. But before I let you go, I would love for you to let us know, where can we buy the book? Where can we follow you? If anyone wants to work with you, what's your website? Any of those. We'll also include it in the show notes, but if you want to leave that now, that would be great.
Yeah, so my book is called The Valued Leader. It's off Amazon. I might be biased about it, but I'm sure you'll find it valuable. It is pretty much talking about you becoming a valuable leader. Nobody specific, but all of you, everyone. We all have that potential. We're all unique. Never discredit yourself because you have the same potential as I do. The only thing that makes it different is the actions I'm taking. So let that shift your focus and you can take your own actions. You don't have to go my way. You can go whatever way you want to develop it. So, anyways, The Value Leader is off Amazon. I believe it's a good book. It talks about goals, it talks about how we have to line up or climb up the leadership ladder, which is just a explanation, I guess you can say. And then if anybody wants to have me on their podcast, just reach out through LinkedIn or reach out to Devon. And I would appreciate anybody. To be honest, it doesn't have to be anything significant. And I believe this was a significant opportunity. I'm very thankful for it. But yes, sir. But actually, I think everything is a awesome opportunity. The day that I am in today is a opportunity. The sorrows that I was in yesterday is an opportunity. You know why? It's because I made it to today.
Mm, I
But
hear that.
anyways, yeah, that's a thing. And if anybody stage events and is looking for a public speaker, then again, just reach out to me on LinkedIn or him on LinkedIn. And I do offer a online fitness program and I love it and I'm dedicated towards it, but my life purpose is not running a online fitness business. It is delivering a message.
Mm. I love it. And we'll make sure to include everything in the show notes. So if anyone wants to buy the book, you'll be able to follow the link in the show notes and go directly to the book on Amazon and purchase your own copy. But thank you so much, Taylor, for being here. Thank you for so much for telling your story, for being vulnerable and kind of letting us in, but also giving us insight on how we can just be not only better for ourselves, but everyone around us that is in our lives. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It was truly a pleasure to interview you. And hopefully, if you're free again, we can bring you back and you can talk about some more stuff and share more insight and help our audience kind of get to know themselves better. So thank you.
Yeah, I would love that opportunity. And I barely have connected with you, but Devin, I can visualize something for you. I visualize that you will impact people's lives. That's kind of a
Thank
broad
you.
thing, I know, but you will impact people's lives more than you realize. I can tell this because of what we talk about. And I know that everything that you may have experienced have made you into who you are today. And this is profound. And I believe that you will be successful in the things that you achieve or want to achieve.
Thank you. You have no idea. I appreciate that a lot. So very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because I definitely want to impact people in a positive way. And yes, because of what I've been through and what um yeah, just my life has been very up and down. So any way that I can help, someone else from not experiencing maybe some of the things I went through, I'm all for, because if we can make this world a better place, I think that's what our purpose is here for. Yeah, thank you again, Taylor. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
It's glad to help.
Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, until next time, I will see you guys on the next episode. I hope you guys have a blessed weekend, blessed day, and talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, it's Icarus here.
And Amelia.
And I'm here to tell you if you'd like to join our brand new adventure. Go to DevonTaylorAuthor.com to learn more.
And check out the cool items like the new bucket hat.
Yeah, and so much more. See you guys there.